Namo Shakyamuni Buddham. Good morning, everyone. Welcome back. Welcome if you're new here. I feel like we haven't seen each other in a while, which is actually kind of true because I had canceled last class because I was in California. And this will be our last class for the summer. So we'll have August off as far as the meditation classes are concerned. So there will be no meditation in August. Plus, I'll be gone for another 3 weeks anyway. So, so we'll continue back. We'll be back September 11. Same time every second and fourth Saturday of the month at 10 a.m. So last class we started on the 5 hindrances. I know this year's series were meant to be on the Anapanasati Sutra, or the discourse on mindfulness of breathing. So we've covered the first 4 of those 16 exercises that were in that discourse, and I decided to stop there because it'll be more beneficial just to stick with those 4 core exercises, and then we can move on to some of the other important aspects of meditation. Last year, it didn't happen. No, 2020. In 2019, when we had our first series, we covered the different methods and techniques of meditation, which hopefully gave everyone that was here or watched a basic idea of how to meditate and what to meditate on. So we've given you different methods, different techniques, different things to meditate on to help you find that one that really works for you best. And so after we finish the 5 hindrances, today we're going to do the second hindrance, and then the next 2 classes will finish up the last 3. And then after the hindrances, we are going to kind of re-evaluate 3 of the meditation methods that we have been practicing, which is meditation on the breath, walking meditation, and chanting or mantra meditation. And after those 3 classes, we should be, or maybe 2 classes, it depends. I'm hoping it's tentative that we will have a meditation retreat on November, I think it's 10th. Whatever second Saturdays in November. It's right before Thanksgiving. So, which I think would be a good idea. That way it'll give you something to talk about when you're at Thanksgiving dinner, eating food that I can't eat. So, last class we went over the first hindrance. So the 5 hindrances, just to go over them really quick, are desire, or specifically sensual desire, ill will or aversion, sloth and torpor or laziness, restlessness and worry, and doubt are the 5 hindrances. So last class we went over desire and how desire in meditation tends to obstruct our concentration. And there's many levels of desire that we covered, many aspects of the spectrum of desire, right? We have desire in the extreme side where we are addicted to something, drugs, alcohol, sex, whatever. And we have the subtler desires, like just the need or desire for chocolate or ice cream, right? Because I always want chocolate. So there's a huge range of desires that we have in life, right? But when we meditate, that range of desire kind of shrinks down a little bit because now we're like super concentrated. And then as we're attempting to be super concentrated, we can start to really evaluate and see these desires as they happen while we're meditating. Because the point is, and of course not all desire is bad. There's good desire and there's bad desires. The good desires, of course, are just things that we want to aspire or accomplish in life, right? Maybe you want to go to school, have a better education, have a better job, do good for your family, etc. Those are the good desires. Nothing wrong with that. But of course, there are the bad desires as well, right? Which is the things that cause addiction, the things that cause harm to other people, right? So if you are trying to get a good job, but you're backstabbing and throwing people under the bus and you're manipulating people, that's harm to other people. So that's like a bad desire. It's benefiting you, but it's not benefiting other people. And so as we meditate and we observe these thoughts as they arise, right? Because remember, meditation is not about stopping your thinking. It's about watching what you're thinking about and acknowledging the thinking that it's there, right? So we go over, and especially these 5 hindrances, when we meditate on these 5 hindrances, one of the key things you want to do as you meditate is to label these thoughts as they arise. So as you think about food, right, we're not entertaining the thought of food. We're not saying, oh, I'm hungry now. What do I want to eat? Where do I want to go after this? Do I have do I have stuff at home to cook for? Do I have to go shopping? Do I want a burger? Do I want a pizza? Right? You don't want to entertain these thoughts. You simply want to acknowledge that the thought of food has come up. So you just label it food or hunger or chocolate, whatever it is, right? The first thing that comes up, you give it that one word label and you move on. Once you acknowledge the thought, it will automatically on its own disappear for the most part. So we don't want to entertain these thoughts, right? So that's not the objective of meditation in the long run, years and years after your practice, right? You'll get to a point where you have very little to no thinking. But right now, since that's practically impossible for the majority of people, you don't want to force yourself to stop thinking. That's not the point here. The point is to observe the mind, see what comes up. You want to observe how you think about things. If something or someone that you dislike comes up, right, you want to acknowledge that type of thinking and give it a label. That way, after a while, after you've labeled so many things, you start making this flow chart in your mind of all the labels that came up, and you kind of see the trend of how your thinking works. That way you can say, oh, maybe I feel like this or I think like this because of that, or whatever it is, right? There's always a cause for something. You're not just angry because you're an angry person. Something happened that caused that anger to settle in your mind and in your heart. So we meditate in order to find what that is, so we can either work toward eradicating it out of our lives. Maybe it's someone that we have to cut out of our lives. Maybe it's a job. Maybe it's a place, right? Whatever it is, we don't know. Only you know. But you really have to dig deep and be true and honest to yourself about these thoughts that arise. I feel like I'm just going to go back into desire. Desire was a big topic. I meant to do two hindrances for each class, so I have enough time to finish all the rest of the stuff before the retreat. But desire was such a huge topic. It took us like an hour and a half to cover, so I'm not going to go over it again. So if you missed last class, please watch that video that's on our YouTube page. So today we're going to go over ill will or aversion, right? And so ill will in most cases really refers to the unpleasant feelings that we go through in life, right? It's the anger, the hatred, the aggression, the annoyance, the frustrations, the jealousy, all these things that cause unpleasantness is considered aversion, right? And we do that on a daily basis. We avoid things we don't like. We avoid people we don't like, right? So we're pushing away all these unpleasant feelings and trying to grab onto the pleasant ones, right? We're pushing away ill will and we're pulling in desire, right? So we try to not do that specifically. So you don't want to push away and you want to pull. Instead, you want to have an audience of all your ill wills and all your desires and talk to each one, basically, to figure out what they are, where they came from, why they're there, right? Remember, meditation, part of meditation is contemplation. So you constantly ask yourself, why? Why am I feeling this feeling? Where is this feeling coming from, right? So in meditation, when ill will arises, which is essentially any negative or unpleasant feeling that arises, right? And so most commonly, especially for new meditators or people who've meditated for a short amount of time, the biggest ill will that will arise is pain, physical pain, because most Western societies are not used to sitting on the floor for long periods of time, right? And even if you are comfortable now, how long is that comfort going to last, right? It may last for 10, 15 minutes, but after a while, your knees starting to ache, your back starts to slouch and hurts, right? Your feet are falling asleep. So a lot of unpleasantness that's happening in the body. Which if you know me, I always say you need to suck up and just go through it, because that's the only way you're going to get your body used to your feet falling asleep or your aches. But for newer meditators or someone who may be older or whatever, that just don't have that capability of sitting for a long period of time, those aversions, for anybody really, is just to be mindful of the sensation of the pain, not the pain itself. Because what starts happening is you start thinking to yourself, oh my goodness, I'm in so much pain. I don't know if I can last for 30 minutes or an hour or however much time you're meditating for, right? Or you start feeling sorry for yourself. You're like, oh, I'm here trying to meditate. I'm in so much pain. I'm in hell. But all the people around me, they're in such bliss, and they're perfect meditators because they can stand the pain, right? So you don't want either of those. But we do have to be mindful of this sensation of pain that's happening. Because otherwise you're going to get angry at the pain, and then you're going to get angry at yourself for feeling the pain. And then you're going to get discouraged and fearful of meditation in the future, because you're thinking, if I meditate again, I'm just going to have that pain all over again, right? So we don't want to get angry or disappointed toward ourselves or towards the pain, but just acknowledge that the sensation of whatever pain that's happening in your body is there. And then be mindful of the movement, because it's okay to adjust yourself while you're sitting, right? It takes practice to teach your body to sit for meditation. I was recently in California at a monastery to take full ordination, and their daily schedule is slightly different than ours. They wake up a little bit earlier, meditate for a little bit longer. So their meditation sessions are 2 hours at 4 a.m., right? Our meditation sessions here are at 5 a.m. for 90 minutes, an hour and a half. So it's not much that difference, but my body and my mentality is so used to an hour and 30 minutes that I can meditate for that long without needing an alarm. Like, I just know when it's time to get up and do the walk meditation and sit back down. But over there, after that hour and a half mark, my body was just saying, listen, you need to get up. We're not used to this. This is no-go. This is not good for you. I'm like, no, it's okay. It's like 30 more minutes, maybe. I don't know. I didn't have a watch or anything, so I don't know what time it was or how long I'd been sitting. But my body was really aching. Also because their cushions I'm used to sitting on, so it's just a different position too. So I had a lot of aversion towards the end. So, but you always have to get used to it, right? You, just like when you're working out, right? Your body aches. You're literally tearing muscle when you work out, right? And so the only reason you get bigger muscles is because new muscle tissue is growing over the torn parts. So the same way you have to struggle to physically work out, you have to struggle to mentally work out. So I was telling myself, okay, when I come back here, I'm going to meditate longer just to be able to do it. Because over the course of the next few years, I'll be traveling to different temples and monasteries to get an education, I guess, a Buddhist education. So, and I don't know their schedules. I don't know how long they sit for. One of the other temples I went to, they sit for 2.5 hours in the morning. They used to do like 3.5, but they had lay people come to the temple, and that was too much for them, so they cut it an hour, so they still sit for 2.5 hours. I'm like, that's still 2.5 hours way too long for a lot of people. But anyway, so when aversion arises like that, or when you feel discomfort in your body, just acknowledge that the discomfort's there. Don't hate on it. Don't discourage the feeling of not being able to meditate, because you can. It's just that little block. But that block can cause that aversion to discourage your meditation practice. So when you do feel discomfort in the body, right, just be mindful of it. Say, hey, just give that label, discomfort or pain, whatever it may be. And then just be mindful of the movement. If you have to adjust yourself, if you have to straighten up your back, or you have to move your legs, or whatever it may be mindful of you moving. And as you're moving, you want to label that too. Adjusting, moving, correcting, whatever it is you're doing, right? Make those mental notes. And then after a while, as you make those mental notes, because they're only one word labels, it's easy to keep track of them, right? Versus, oh, I'm thinking of a cat now. And then later, oh, I'm thinking about this dog, blah, 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 blah. Versus just saying animal or sound, right? Just give it a one word. That way, after the meditation practice, you can start collecting those labels and see what the biggest thing that came up during the meditation. That way you can address it. If it's sound, right, if there's too much background sound outside or inside, then maybe that's a sign to meditate somewhere else that's quieter, right? If it's too cold or too hot, then you know you have to find somewhere that's more comfortable. Whatever it may be, right? But you collect these labels so you can start figuring out what's going on in your mind, so you can start correcting the situation. And then, of course, besides physical aversion, there's also the mental aversion. And those are, of course, the thoughts that arise while we're meditating, right? So sometimes your body is super comfortable and you're very relaxed, so you have no physical pain or aversion. But now you have these mental aversions showing up, right? These are the negative thoughts of things or people. Or you start thinking about the past, Or you start thinking about the past, right? So now you have these aversion of things that happened this morning, or yesterday, or last week, or 3, 5, 4, 10 years ago. Now they're coming up. And now you're like, oh yeah, I remember Brittany from high school. If I ever saw her, I'm gonna punch her in the face, right? And then you see her at HB and you're like, oh my gosh, that's Brittany, let me walk away, right? You're never gonna really punch someone in the face, come on now. So it's things like those you also have to be aware of, because then if you don't become mindful of wanting to punch Brittany in the face, then you're gonna start daydreaming of actually punching her in the face or doing other things to them, right? So this movie in our head starts being created, this fantasy in our mind starts being created, because we're not mindful of the initial thought that came up, right? And I always say that the quicker you're able to catch that distraction or any thought that arises that's not part of your meditation, the quicker you're able to catch it and recognize it and label it or do whatever you're supposed to be doing for your session, the better. But if you do get distracted and you forget about catching it quickly, maybe 10 seconds down the line, maybe 1 minute, 2 minutes, 3 minutes before you start catching it and you realize, oh, I'm distracted, let me go back to my meditation object, that is perfectly fine, right? Don't get discouraged because you got distracted. But if you recognize that you did get distracted and you go back to your meditation object, then that's a huge accomplishment on its own, because you're doing what you're supposed to be doing in meditation. Yes, you've gotten distracted. Yes, it may have been a minute or two, but a minute or two is better than your whole meditation session. Otherwise, you just sat there doing nothing besides daydreaming. What's the point, right? You just wasted your whole time. So it's okay to get distracted, but we do want to work on trying to catch them. And we are training our mind to catch those quicker and quicker, right? Through meditation. But you have to put in the work for it to work, for it to happen. So as you catch these distractions, and as you recognize that they are desire or aversion or any other hindrance or any other thing that may be out there, right? You start to recognize how the mind works. And then you're able to stop yourself from creating ill will and negativity and hatred in your mind, right? Because all hatred arises from a single thought, right? Any bias, any discrimination, any hate towards people or things gets created by a single thought. And that single thought became this big thing because we've allowed it to grow and to fester in our minds, to defile our minds, to defile our hearts, to defile the way we think and treat people. And so the quicker we're able to catch these negative thoughts, these ill wills and these aversions towards people or things, the quicker we're able to label it and say, that's not right thinking, that's not right intention, that's not right view towards people or things. That way, even outside of meditation, if you're in a situation where maybe you see someone you've disliked in the past, right? And so now that you've meditated and you are able to recognize these negative thoughts during meditation, you can take that practice outside of meditation. So when you see Brittany on HEB, you're not automatically thinking, oh man, I really want to punch her in the face. You're thinking, oh, there's Brittany. She's a classmate, or she was a roommate, or she was a friend, or whatever it may be, right? And I give the example of working with a coworker, right? So for I think it was the last class, we have this kind of self-righteousness to our personality sometimes, right? So it can arise in almost any situation, but most noticeably is during work, right? Let's just say we have a new coworker that came up, right? And your manager is bringing them around and they're introducing them to everybody. And before you even meet them, before you even learn their name, you already hate them for no reason. You just don't like the way they walk, you don't like the way they talk or the dress or how they wear their hair or their shoes, whatever it may be, right? You just automatically said, I'm gonna ruin your life, right? And then they come around and like, hi, my name is Brittany, my name is Joe, my name is Leon, nice to meet you. And because that initial thought of dislike is there, that's your very first impression, even though it's not a real first impression because you haven't actually met them yet. But then maybe after a while you get to know them, like, okay, maybe you're not such a bleep, bleep, bleep person after all, right? You're actually really nice. You actually know how to do your job, right? You may be young, but you're pretty resourceful. You're pretty skillful. And so you stop trying to blackmail them or ruin their lives, right? Because if you don't, right, when I used to work in an office, I used to be really weird. Not really weird, but I used to be like social and antisocial all at the same time. Like, I would be antisocial when I have to meet new people because I don't like meeting new people, but then when I'm with people, I'm super social. Like, I want to talk to everybody. But if I see new people coming in, I'm like, no, I don't know you, I don't want to talk to you. But then I get to know them, and I do want to talk to them. So, if I stuck with the aversion of not wanting to talk to them at all, then I would have never made new friends. Because one of my best friends, that I've known her for like like, I don't know, 15 years. When I very first met her, I was like, she's coming here with a Louis Vuitton bougie purse and these high heels. She thinks she's all that. But now we're like best of friends. So perception can change, right? But we have to be sure that our first impression, our first perception, our first idea of something is not negative. Because that negativity is going to make that block, and that block is going to be very difficult to break, depending on the situation, depending on who it is, where you are. So, but if we release that block and not even put that there in the first place, then we're more open to learn, to love, to see things, to understand things more. Because a lot of things in our lives, a lot of our ideas and perceptions are, for the most part, false. They're not real, right? We think our ideas and our perception of things and people are solid because that's what we maybe grew up with, right? Maybe it's been enforced, ingrained in our mind, which tends to happen to many people in different societies, right? They grew up saying this type of people are wrong, they're bad, they are evil, they're disgusting, whatever it may be, right? So if you're fortunate enough to not have grown up in that kind of environment, then good for you, right? Because you're open and capable of truly understanding. But if you did grow up in that kind of environment, then it's very difficult to get that out, right? It's difficult to, even though you want to accept a different view, your brain and your mind is saying no. Remember, mom and dad told you these people were evil. They're a different color, they're a different gender, they're a different orientation. These are people you don't want to associate with. But why? Because they're different? Maybe they're better than you, and you're afraid to be facing someone that's better than you, that's more knowledgeable, that's smarter, that's, whatever. Man, I went off topic. But point is, if we're able to meditate on these types of aversions that arise, we can take it outside into our everyday life. That way, when we are driving, everybody knows I have a slight road rage problem, but when we're driving and someone cuts us off, we're not automatically flipping them off. We're not automatically cursing their entire family to hell. We're not automatically trying to drive in front of them and cut them off and show them who's boss, right? Because what happens here is that self-righteousness again. Why are they cutting me off? Who do they think they are? I'm obviously more important. I have to go to work. Okay, maybe they have to go to a hospital. Maybe someone's giving birth in the car. Maybe someone's dying, right? You don't know. But that's a problem that we do in life, is we create these false stories for other people to make ourselves and our situations feel better. And that's something we obviously don't want to do, because that's wrong thinking, that's wrong intention, that's wrong understanding of the world, because that's not how things work. So if we're able to learn through meditation, and because it doesn't have to be through meditation, but because in meditation we're able to really focus our concentration specifically on these types of ill will or desire, whatever it may be, because we're super concentrated on that, it's easier for us to recognize and realize that in everyday life, where we don't have to be sitting in meditation to recognize that this type of desire is not good for us, or this aversion is creating hatred in our hearts, whatever it may be, right? So the more we're able to recognize that more easily and label it quickly through meditation, the easier it is to do the same in everyday life, where we don't have to be in a meditative state. We just know if someone cuts us off, or someone accidentally bumps into us at HB or whatever, we're not automatically feeling this hate or aversion toward them. We can recognize that maybe it was an accident. Maybe they truly do have an emergency and they're rushing in front of us to get somewhere. We don't know. But through that recognition, that takes away that false storytelling that we create for other people. That takes away the automatic aversion and negativity negative thought, negative thinking towards those people or places or things, whatever it may be. And then we're able to be more free, be more open, be more understanding. Because that's the point in life, is to be happy and to be free. If you're constantly worried, if you're constantly dissatisfied, if you're constantly just feeling anger and frustration or whatever towards your life or people, then what kind of life is that? But when and if we think like that, another common thing that we typically do is blame. Maybe we're blaming other people. Maybe we're blaming our job. We hate our job, but we blame the job itself for a dissatisfied life. We're not blaming us for taking that job. We're blaming the job. Or we're blaming somebody else for creating, a bad environment in our home or whatever it may be. And sometimes it is situations where we can't control, right? But for the most part, the way we think, the way we perceive, the way we interact and act is all on us, because that's in our minds, right? So if we feel hate towards our neighbor, right? Sure, maybe they said things that caused you some discomfort, but ultimately the feeling of hatred or annoyance itself is from you. They didn't give it to you, right? There's a really good story in one of the sutras about the Buddha who had someone come up to him and yell and curse him out and blame him for being a false teacher or whatever it may be. And the Buddha just stayed silent. And the man was like, "Why aren't you reacting? Why aren't you saying anything back?" And the Buddha replied, "If you presented me with a present and I didn't take it or accept it, to whom does the present go to?" He's like, "Well, it goes back to me because I bought it, it's mine." He's like, "Exactly. So if you spew out your negativity and hatred and I don't accept it, then it just goes back to you, right? It doesn't affect me." And I always say, if someone calls you like a crazy purple cow, does that actually make you a crazy purple cow? No, because there's no such thing as purple cows. But it kind of goes back to those, you just not accepting what people are saying. So that's all on you. If someone curses you out, if someone calls you names, if someone disrespects you, if someone does whatever to you, it's completely in your control whether you accept it, believe it, or you don't. If you don't, then that's it. They can call you all the name in the book. That doesn't affect you. I don't care. Call me whatever you want. That's cool. Thanks. Peace out. I'm freer. I'm happier. You're calling me names. I'm just like walking on out. It doesn't matter. But our initial reaction to those kind of things is to retaliate, right? If someone calls us names, we're going to call them bigger names. If someone hurts us, we're going to hurt them harder, right? We have that's just our habitual habit, right? That we want to do. So I hope that through your meditation practice that you learn to recognize these things as they arise. So when they do happen to you in everyday life, that you're able to stop, take a few deep breaths, and recognize what's going on. That way you can control your reaction. Because if your reaction is habitual and automatic, if you say something or do something bad or wrong, you can't take it back. It's been done. It's been said. No one's going to forgive you, right? But if you're able to stop and think about what you want to really say and what you should say, then whatever you do say or do is much better for you, right? It's much better for other people. You can't fight hatred with hatred. You can't fight fire with fire. You have to fight back with love and with understanding and with compassion, right? Some people think you're being dumb for being compassionate toward them when they're being negative towards you. Like, oh, you're weird, right? Like, why are you being nice to me or whatever? But that's not your problem, right? What they think is not your problem. It's none of your business. What they say or what they think, it's none of your business. Don't worry about that. Worry about the impact that you are creating in your life, in your society, in the world. Because ultimately, that bully or whoever is, hurting you or slandering you, after a while, after you constantly just reply back with compassion and with understanding and with love, after a while, they're going to see that pattern. They're going to see, this person has been really nice to me and I've been really negative or mean toward them, right? So maybe they'll stop. Maybe they'll be nice back. Maybe they'll apologize. It won't happen overnight in most cases. It may take a month, a year, maybe more. But eventually they'll see that pattern, and then that creates a domino effect in the world, right? Most people who, when they see other people doing good or volunteering, that arises a feeling of wanting to do the same too, right? You'll see videos all the time of people helping the poor or the homeless or just volunteering and helping build houses or whatever it may be. At least for me, when I see that, I'm like, man, I need to go back and do that too. I want to help too, right? So my hope for the world is, the more people that are capable of being compassionate and loving, and more people see it, it'll arise that feeling of wanting to do the same for them, and they'll continue to do it. That way, we create more compassion and love in the world versus hatred and animosity and discrimination, right? But that's natural, though. We've seen discrimination kind of dwindle down a bit over the centuries, right? It feels like every decade or two, like 0.5% of discrimination goes down in the world. But that 0.5% every 10 years, it's still some sort of progress, right? It's a short, small progress, but it's still progress. And that's what's important. And so I don't think I mentioned this last class, but when we recognize desire arising when we are meditating, then to combat that, we need to, or we should at least, start practicing generosity, right? Because the whole thing of desire is wanting more, wanting something bigger, wanting something better, wanting something faster. And so to combat that, to try to alleviate some of that desire, we should be practicing generosity. And I forgot what class it was, but there was a class where I taught the generosity meditation, where you are essentially meditating and visualizing yourself in front of your house, and you're having like this garage sale or yard sale, and you're giving away your prized possessions to people. And at first, you can visualize yourself giving your most precious objects to your own family or to your close friends, right? And then you start giving away things to your neighbors, to strangers, and eventually to those you dislike or consider an enemy, right? And then same thing with ill will, with aversion. We practice metta, loving kindness meditation, where we are generating this feeling of compassion, loving kindness for other people, and especially for ourselves. And so when we practice the metta meditation, the loving kindness meditation, we are essentially saying that, the meditation prayer, for instance, or the metta prayer is, may I be free from suffering, the cause of suffering. May I be happy in the cause of happiness. May I be healthy and have the causes of healthiness. May I be free and have the causes of freedom, right? So it's a prayer of metta. And so you do that for yourself, and then you do that for the same way with the giving away stuff. You start with your family. You start with your friends, your siblings, your loved ones, your neighbors, the strangers, your coworkers, and eventually those you dislike. You go down the list of these people, and you want to create this feeling of love and kindness for all of them. That way, obviously it won't change your mindset overnight, but after many sessions of wishing goodwill and health and happiness for everybody, then that helps you in everyday life, where you may see somebody you not like in the past, or somebody did something to you, you're not automatically defending yourself and saying, how dare you bump into me? Do you know who I am? No, I don't know who you are. That's why I bumped into you. Right? Or whatever, it doesn't matter. But with aversion, that's what we do to combat the ill willness or the mindset of ill will is through the loving kindness meditation. So I've talked too much, as usual. So today we'll just do 20 minutes since I overtalked. We'll meditate for 20 minutes, and today, like last class, we'll specifically concentrate on aversion and ill will as it rises. So whether you're feeling pain in your body as you meditate, whether it's a negative thoughts or feeling or anything else, our focus today is specifically on aversion and ill will. And be sure to give it those labels, right? That way, after the session, you can collect those labels and kind of stack them up and see what label occurred the most, right? That way you can work toward alleviating whatever label that is. So we'll sit for 20 minutes. Before we start though, any questions, concerns, emotional outbursts they don't want to hear about? Okay. Well, we'll sit for 20 minutes, and then after we're done, I'll give you some time to see if you want to share any of your reflections or if you have any questions after the session. So everyone get themselves in position, get comfortable, add a cushion or two if you need to. everyone had a good meditation session. All right, what ill wills or aversions came up today? I'll tell you mine. I do not like sitting on the chair meditating. Anybody want to share? Or any other questions you may have? Yes. Yes. Full bhikshu. I'm a full bhikshu now, yes. Changed. Yes, slightly different. It's darker. It's darker color. Which I think it's too dark, but that's okay. It's okay. Nothing I can do about it now, right? That's aversion right there. Yes, Yes, that's the third and final step of the ordination process. So that's where I was last 2 Sundays ago. I was in California. I went to Daidang Monastery. It's the same place, the same monastery I went to the first time for my novice ordination. And so I was lucky enough to be invited back to take full ordination. So that's where I was. So I'm very happy. It finally happened. I feel like it took forever, but at the same time, I feel like it was just yesterday that I came here and shaved my head, but it's almost 3 years ago. So it's been quite a journey. It's been quite fun. Tiring, but freeing. Yes. Okay. Any other questions? So next class, as I mentioned, we won't have September 11th, which is a special day all on its own. We'll do a quick, a very short memorial service that day. And then we'll continue on our third hindrance. And then September, whatever the 4th Saturday is that day, we'll cover the last 2 hindrances, so that will finish the 5 hindrances. And then in October, there's only 2 sessions in October. In October, I guess we'll cover the 3 methods of meditation that I mentioned. So for the first Saturday, second Saturday of October, we'll do meditation on breath, meditating on the breath. In that second class in October, we'll do the mantra and walking meditation. And I'm hoping by November, that second Saturday in November, we'll have our retreat, meditation retreat. So I hope everyone can tentatively join us that day. It'll be 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. It's not that bad, I promise you. You can ask others who've been here, who have been through our retreats, that they're quite enjoyable, and it's a time for intense practice for that short period. But I think it's so much better because you're in a really big group, right? There's usually I usually allow about 10 or 15 people to do the retreats with us. So we're in a pretty big group, we're all like-minded people, open-minded people, so it's much easier to practice for longer periods with a group, right? And we'll have several meditation sessions throughout. You've been here last time, right? Okay. Right. So our longest sitting is only about 45 minutes. I say only 45 minutes because it's not that bad, but it's really not that bad. And it really is easier when you're with people, right? I think that's a common denominator that I've heard from a lot of people, that it's much easier to sit or meditate for longer periods when you're with other people. And so we'll have meditation practices throughout the day. We'll have breakfast, lunch, and a very light dinner, teaching sessions, and then a couple break sessions and some chore sessions. So it's quite, I think, an enjoyable opportunity to get to know other people in the community. And then also on August 22nd, we'll be celebrating Ulambana, which is Parents' Day. It's one of the biggest Buddhist holidays of the year. So it'll be Sunday, August 22 at 10 a.m. So I invite everyone to join us for this beautiful ceremony. It'll be here, and then we'll do pretty much the same thing, because pre-COVID, we had a pretty big lunch or dinner that everyone got to enjoy together. So since last holiday, we are now essentially just packing everything in to-go boxes for everyone to take. It's safer and more convenient for people. So we won't have a sit-down eating session, but you're more than welcome to take the food and sit outside with other people. But it's a really beautiful ceremony. It's very meaningful, and it brings to mind the gratitude and love towards our parents and ancestors. And it's the last holiday of the year in the Buddhist calendar. So I invite everyone to join us for that. That's it. No other questions? Concerns? Yes, ma'am.
So how it will build. So like what if the party like builds towards someone like, you should feel better towards them, but you don't want to let it go.
Yes.
Part of you wants
Part of you wants to continue to not like that person or dislike that person.
almost like you don't want to, it's almost like acknowledging that it's okay.
Right, but then you have to ask yourself, is it okay though?
No, but how are you inside yourself still hold on to that? You don't want to fully.
Let go.
Yes.
Yeah. And that's pretty common, I think, because part of it is habit, part of it is comfortability, right? We're comfortable feeling that way, we're used to feeling that way, but we should also acknowledge that it's better not to feel that way. We feel good feeling that, but we'll feel better not feeling that. And so part of that is acknowledging that, and also acknowledging and asking yourself why, right? Sometimes if like a friend or someone would ask you, why do you don't like that person? Most time, like 99% of the time, we give them a very superficial answer, just to answer the question, right? But whether that superficial answer is true or not, or just an excuse to give, this is where we really start having to go back and ask yourself why. Why do I not like this person? Well, because they didn't do a very good first impression. Why didn't they do a very good first impression, right? And you go down the line, you continue asking yourself why and why and why. For every answer you get, you ask yourself why. Because of this. Well, why? Well, because this happened. Why did that happen? And you continue to do that until you get to the very core root reason of the cause. And sometimes that root reason of the cause is very mundane. It's very stupid. It's very shallow. And we can, at that point, let it go. But because there have been so many other causes and conditions that kind of added to it, it creates a much bigger obstacle for us to want to let it go. And because we've gotten used to feeling that way, because we've gotten used to avoiding that person or talking about that person a certain way, or whatever it may be, it's hard to let go of it, right? We're habit animals. And so when we stick to that habit of feeling that way for so long, we just don't want to change. Not because we can't, because we don't want to. It feels good to hate this person, or it feels good to avoid this person, or it feels good to do this or do that. But in the same time, what good is it doing you? Is it making you a better person? Is it making you freer? Is it making you happier feeling that way? Right? And so if the answer is no, then it's your job to do something about it. Because that person, even though they may have did something to cause you to feel that way or to think that way, it's essentially your own doing for allowing yourself to feel that way, right? So, same thing I mentioned earlier, if someone calls you names, does that actually make you what they're calling you, right? No. But because sometimes we are so self-conscious, or we don't have belief or courage for ourselves, we allow what they're saying to actually penetrate and make us feel like what they're saying is true. But in most cases, it's not true. They're just trying to say or do something to get under your skin. They are wanting a reaction from you. They want you to retaliate. They want you to feel a certain way. They want you to believe that what they're saying is true. But none of it is. It is what it is because you've allowed it to penetrate you that way. So if I have called you names and I said that you're uneducated, or you're useless, or you are just a sore in the world, that's just me being an evil person trying to make you feel like you're not worthy, right? Whether that person knows you or not, it doesn't matter, because you could be educated, you could be highly educated, you could be highly successful, you could be one of the nicest people in the world, but this person's trying to make you feel otherwise. So, but it's our job to not let that affect us, because that's our doing. They can say every word and everything in the book to make you feel so low, but it ultimately is your own shield that's going to block that from actually penetrating you, right? And so when we finally acknowledge that, and you know, if someone does call you out or call you a name, if you're just like, okay, cool, whatever, dude, right? Just imagining it, just imagining it that way, right? Just as an imaginary situation would automatically make you feel better, right? Just knowing that it doesn't affect you makes you feel better, right? But if we allow what they're saying to affect us, then that's going to cause so much discomfort in our mind. It's going to cause so much negativity. It's going to cause so much ill will within us to feel ill will against that person. But truly, they didn't do anything. All they did was say words. Those words were, sticks and stones may break your bones, but words can never hurt me, kind of a thing, right? And so as corny as that sounds, that little rhyme is extremely true, because no one can make you feel a certain way except yourself.
So I would add the same question, like words are understanding something that physically inconstitutional and does some really bad thing physically how do you
If someone like physically hurt her,
it's not like it cause some damage, and that's like, so you don't want that to go away. The words I can understand, yeah, accept it, you just put it and you find things there. They are the bad words, but you can accept it. But you can have the next, maybe the killing, maybe the other torture or something.
well, that's just leveling up, right? So level 1 is not letting words hurt you. Level 2 is not letting physical pain hurt you. But it's the same concept, right? So at least from the Buddhist perspective, anything that happens to you in life is a result of karma, right? So whether it's a karma that you owe from this life, maybe you did something before that you are owed, right? You have a karmic debt to owe, or it could be something from past lives that you are needing to owe, right? So, sometimes teacher gives the examples of people who get accidentally shot by crossfire, right? Someone could be sitting in their home and someone can be driving by shooting up the place. And nobody gets killed except that one person that's sitting in their home lying on their bed, right? It's not coincidence. It's karmic energy saying, listen, out of everything that's happening now, you're the one that's owed the life, right? It's an extreme example, but it's still reflects the same way for any physical damage, for any physical altercation, right? And the mindset's the same thing too. Okay, you've hurt me, right? You can either think of it, you can either do one of two things. You're either going to retaliate and hurt them back, or you can just sit back and let it happen. Not let it happen like let them hurt you on purpose, but you can try to get away and defend yourself and whatnot. But from a karmic sense, from a karmic point of view, if you are retaliating, then you're just adding more karmic damage to your karma bucket, right? So if you don't react negatively, then you don't have any debt to pay back. If you hurt them back, then that's more negative karma, right? You're going in the red, you're not going in the green. Does that make sense? I'm trying to visualize what I need to say in my head.
Yeah, it does make sense. But if you go in different direction, the more husband bad, go through complex legal system, you sue those guys and keep going fighting with them. But it still gives unhappiness.
Right, because at the same time, it's remember, when we are trying to do things in life, right? At least, and this is something we teach from the Buddhist perspective. If you are in a situation where you have to make the decision, like a big decision, ask yourself, who will this help or hurt in the long run? If what you're doing is going to cause any harm to you or to others, then it's probably not a good idea to do, right? And suing someone is definitely not helping anybody. It's hurting people. It may put them in jail. It may cause them to go bankrupt or homeless, or they lose their family, right? There's so many things that can happen from being sued. And we don't always know the repercussion until it happens. And a lot of time when people sue someone, and they sue them because they're so angry at what they're doing, right? But then afterward, when they see now that what they did had caused that person to be homeless, it caused them to lose their family, it caused them to have a divorce, their children don't want to speak to them, their wife or husband don't ever want to see them again, they lost their job. You've ruined a person's life just to make yourself feel better. Who's that helping? That ultimately make you feel better now for 1 minute, 2 minutes, a whole day, and then after that you forgot about it. You forget about the situation, but this person has to spend the rest of their life suffering. What's the point? Yes, Leon? Well, that was done, so now you have to say something.
Even though you might cause some damage to the company, you're using system, which is better than violence, right? Using court system to try to correct some sort of social injustice, right? It's not, now I get a different thing is like, you make me mad, you walk through my yard, so I'm going to sue you for $5,000. That's ridiculous, that's frivolous, right? So I think it comes back to intention, right? So,
I'm doing that. I'm doing that because the corporation, a very big corporation, no way the larger corporations like these Wells Fargo or like one.
but you can, sometimes you can, but and it's your only recourse, because how else can you seek redress for what?
More than that. So that's the thing I was going to get to that. Because like we are pushing these corporations and they have big money, big dollars, big money, and they will make it.
But what if the outcome is that you bring justice for that person who's been wronged by the company? Then you have satisfaction, right? Then you go, I'm willing to take this pain, this frustration, and to go through this because I know that my aim, my intention is noble, it's a good thing, right? But
As rare as that happens,
a
though.
lawsuit is a lawsuit, right? They're all going to be terrible.
We don't have to discuss what happened.
Well, I mean, nothing's black and white, right? Just because you sue someone doesn't mean it's wrong, right? Like Leon said, like you can sue a corporation, like pharmaceutical companies get sued all the time, right? And from what I know, there's very few cases where it benefited the people, right? And most times, like you mentioned, they're so big, they're so powerful that no amount of money can win the case. So there are very few cases if you do sue a big corporation or pharmacy company or whatever, you may win, you may receive justice for those that were harmed, but things are just not, it's not black and white, right?
But we're also protecting people in the future. So like when we sue the pharmaceutical companies and we get the opiates pills off the streets, then we're saving lives, right? We're actually saving human lives.
Well, I mean,
Think about the tobacco laws and how many millions of people's lives were saved by the fact that we sued the tobacco companies and to back off, right?
yeah,
Still there, but they're not going to.
right. But that's also part of the issue. Is like, yeah, you've closed up this avenue, but now there's 100 other new ones that are opening it up. So if anything, you're just causing one business to go out and giving the opportunity for other people to create the same business. So you're not really, in the world, we really can't stop that from happening, unfortunately, right? You can't shut down every little crack house right, in the neighborhood.
We have direct statistics about how addiction and mental health needs have gone down since they sued the company about opioids. So
Right.
you're right, you can't fix it.
Yeah, it's not manual. It's legal. The corporation's coming 10 years, 20 years from now, they will know all people are dying from cancer or whatever. And so, like you're right, you can never close that, those loops. There will always be something.
But that doesn't mean you shouldn't try, right? I mean, at some point, do you give up or do you keep, like, it feels wrong or, you don't just say, I don't think people say, well, this is not something I want to win, I just quit.
I think the point you have to do the loving way, making everybody aware.
Because in that kind of situations, like you can shut it down, but that's only closing one avenue. What we need to do is help people understand the side effects and the negative impacts that that product creates, right? So the company can still be open, you can sue them and you can lose and it's still open, right? And they're still distributing. Or they don't. That's not the point because one closes down, 100 opens. So production is always there. The negative impact that they're doing is always there. And that's not going to change. What we need to change is the mindset of people and get them out of the habit of using it, getting them out of the addiction process, getting them to understand the negative impacts that they're causing to themselves and to their society and to the world, right? So, yeah, you can go ahead and try to sue them, but that's the corporation, even though they're creating the drug, truly they're not 100% at fault. The people are.
So you have to work it with both sides.
Right.
I totally agree. So the lawsuit against the corporation, because they've been greedy and they know that they're harming people and they don't care because they're making money. That has to be settled in the lawsuit. But you're right.
It's a supply and demand, right? Exactly. If there's no demand, then they can't make a supply. See, nothing's that easy. We've covered an array of topics today. Okay. Well, that was deep, y'all. Okay, so that will be it until September 11. Just to remind you, it's tomorrow, 12:30 is our English service. August 22nd at 10 a.m. is Ulambana. And then we'll resume meditation September 11. And with the tentative meditation retreat, November, I think it's 10, I'm not sure. Whatever second Saturdays in November.
One question, do we do 12:30 meditation like in daily service on Sunday?
We used to, but our teacher has cut it out because he's getting older, so he can't sit and stay for that long of a period anymore, so he's removed the meditation. Right, unless he's out of town, which he will be in a few weeks. So when I do the service, then I'll add the meditation back, because people want to meditate. I hope that people want to meditate. Okay. Alrighty. Well, Namo Shakyamuni Buddham.